You remember the early days of your marriage, or maybe while you were dating, the way you
Mm,
felt about each other, the butterflies you had in your stomach, maybe when you thought about getting together. Those days when even a coffee discussion over coffee or over a date, you just couldn't wait to get into. You looked forward to those deep conversations that went on and on and on, maybe about the dreams that you were looking forward to making come true, or the goals that you had. But now, the way you felt, all of those things that characterized a spark in your relationship, they feel like they are gone. No spark, certainly no fire, and you're just not sure how to get it back.
mm.
Well, we've been talking about ways of getting your spark back in your marriage. And today, if you're feeling this way and that spark is gone, then you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to talk about a particular way to get your spark back that we feel is almost like a superpower. It's so effective when it's exercised, when it's done on a regular basis.
Mm.
Lynn and I were in that situation probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years after we first got married. We were busy, busy people. I had a new position as an emergency room physician director.
I
Lynn,
was working as an English as second language teacher.
yeah, and you had a great job. I mean, at Dartmouth, that was a fabulous job that you
Mm.
had. Um, we were pursuing our careers. We had just moved an 18th century house that we had dismantled and put on this property in Vermont.
Mm.
It was a new community for us. Vermont was a new state to move to. We really didn't know anybody. We were doing, but we're not people to sit back and just kind of, oh, you can come to us. We were active in our church. We were trying to get to know neighbors in the community. Um,
Mm.
and Yet there was something missing in our marriage. That spark was just starting to dissipate. In fact, I began to notice that Lynn has some of the most beautiful blue eyes that you can imagine. And she has a sparkle in those eyes. And that sparkle was just,
Mm.
it was disappearing. And we talked about, so what's going on here? And I mean, what was it? What were we, what was going on in your head during that time?
I was coming home and, from work, and I got home in the afternoon and we didn't have kids. We didn't know people, like you said,
Mhm.
yet. And I was feeling lonely.
Yeah, yeah. And yet here we were pursuing people.
Mm.
It's not like but good deep relationships take time. And we kind of said, well, that must be what's going on here, because particularly for Lynn, because things are just not what they used to be. And our marriage was starting to pay the price, it seemed. Well, I'm not a person to sit back and do nothing about it. I am a fixer. I mean, maybe one reason I became a physician. And I said, I'm going to take the bull by the horns. Lynn needs something. So I began to think of ways that I could try to help her and lift her out of this funk. So I began to bring her flowers. She loves roses. And so pretty much on a weekly basis, I would bring her roses. And,
Mm.
you seem to like the
I
roses,
like, yeah, they're nice.
but they didn't do the trick. Nothing really changed. That sparkle was not there.
You
Uh,
can't really talk to a rose.
No, that's a good point. You can't talk to a room. So I said, well, I continued in that because I said maybe she needs something more. And I had long hours, and so I was probably neglecting a lot of the stuff, the chores at home that needed to be done. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to be more intentional about maybe doing the dishes after dinner, or just doing stuff around the house that would be kind of taking up the slack of the chores. Did that do anything for our marriage?
It was good. It was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice, but
Mm.
nothing. Still no change. None of that sparkle was there. I said, okay. There are some, maybe Lynn needs just a good hug. I mean, we're both huggers. We both are pretty physical. And maybe she just needs more affection. So I began to give her more affection, holding hands more intentionally, and hugging more intentionally when I got home, before we left, making sure I gave her, we always kissed each other when I left or came back. So, but I just wanted to be intentional about that. And that didn't seem to do squat.
No, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, you did, but still no change in that spark. It was gone. I'm somebody who likes appropriate, authentic compliments, and I said, well, maybe Lynn needs more of that. And to be honest with you, I had struggled with being a pretty critical person, and I said, I need to change that. And so I began to compliment her in appropriate ways, authentically. But yeah, no change whatsoever. One day she gave me a call. I had an administrative day at the hospital, and she called me in the early afternoon, and she just said, "Listen, I said, you sound like you're not doing well." She said, "I'm not." I said, "Honey, I've tried everything I can do to try to lift this up, lift you out of this funk you're in. I give you flowers. That doesn't seem to do much. I come home and I do more chores. That's not helping. I compliment you, but you don't really respond to that. And I've been really being more affectionate, and nothing is working. I don't get it." And you said in your own inimicable fashion,
I just want to spend time with you,
yeah,
more time.
I just want to spend time with you. Now, I don't know how many times Lynn had said that, probably 3-4 dozen times, but for some reason that hit me right between the eyes. I want to spend more time with you. And immediately I said, what have I been missing? I told her, honey, I'm going to close up shop. I don't need to do anything more administratively at the hospital. I'll be right home. I went home. There, Lynn made some tea. She's a tea drinker. We had in this restored old house that we had, Lynn had created a space called her tea nook, and it was this beautiful window that overlooked the Green Mountains of Vermont. Beautiful place. There was a round table there and 2 chairs. And guess what? After a year and a half of living in that place, we had never sat in that thing. So we just sat there. Lynn made tea. We had some snacks, and we just enjoyed one another. We talked about everything. And it was so clear to me that I needed to do more of that, spend more of that uninterrupted time with her. And so that's what we did. And I would say very quickly, probably within maybe just a week or two, I began to see that spark come back in her. And it really, that spark in our marriage created a marital fire. We had stumbled upon what is now called the love languages. This was a love language that Lynn had, and her love language was quality time. There was a clinical psychologist named Dr. Gary Chapman, who a few years before had written a book called The 5 Love Languages. And he said that there were 5 languages that, when expressed to a particular person, one of the 5 love languages, any one of them, if expressed appropriately, would represent love to them, and it would float their boat like it did for Lynn when I began to spend more time with her. We didn't know anything about this book when we discovered this, but somebody pointed out and said, it sounds like have you read the 5 love languages? And so we went out and got the book, and lo and behold, there it was in plain black and white. So we took the quiz that was part of the 5 love languages book, and I found out that my love language was words of affirmation. So let's talk a little bit about these 5 love languages, just for people who are uninformed or unaware of what they are and what they mean. There are 5 of them, right? And so Lynn, your love language is
Time.
right. And what, and how would you say quality time? What is
It's
that?
uninterrupted together. For example, if we take a walk on the beach here, if we watch an episode of NCIS together,
That's not bad.
yeah.
So those are a couple examples of spending quality time that you like. Mine is words of affirmation. So for me, words of affirmation really are praise, compliments. They are encouragements, words of encouragement that are all authentic. They need to be authentic. They can't be flattery. And when those kind of words are expressed, it makes my day for sure. So those are 2. Those are quality time and words of affirmation. What's another one? Gifts.
Gifts, which is giving, receiving gifts.
So what's an example of giving and receiving gifts that
Well,
would be a love
like when you
language?
gave me flowers before,
Right.
and you can't really hear because we're just surrounded by flowers now.
Yeah, right, right.
But yeah, the gift of flowers that you gave me.
Yeah, so that's an example. I mean, people whose love language, this is their primary love language. This is this is a superpower for them when it's done. So gifts, that's the 3rd one. The 4th one is acts of service. Acts of service is basically doing a task or that whether it's needed around a house or maybe it's like cooking a meal, cooking a meal, or like my dad used to, if I did his lawn, if I mowed his lawn and did it not out of duty, but just did it, it would make his day for some reason.
Right.
So, and then the last one is physical touch. And what is physical touch?
That's appropriate, affectionate touch. It could be hugging, kissing, holding hands.
Yep.
It's not a sexual kind of thing. It's more affection.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the 5 love languages. And once again, what's important is that every person, according to Gary Chapman, and I believe this is true because we've seen it so many times in the marriage coaching we do, every person has at least one primary love language. You meet that primary love language and you float their boat on a regular basis. So we recommend that you want to get your spark back, that you follow the 4 steps that we're going to give you. First, we've got a link here. You can click on the link that will take you to the 5 love languages quiz. You can take that quiz and you'll find out. And so number 1, take the quiz. Number 2, share the results of that quiz. That is, what is my primary love language, with your spouse. Share it with your spouse. Number 3, take some cloistered time, where you're uninterrupted time, so to speak. It could be any time of the day, any way that works for you. It could be a date day, it could be a coffee date, it could be later at night if you've got young kids, and then put to bed. Just time where you're going to have about an hour's worth of time where you're going to share each other's love language. But more importantly, you're going to share 3 ways that you would like your love language expressed. Okay. And then number 4, you want to go ahead and start expressing that love language as often as you see the opportunity for your spouse in any one of the ways that they've suggested. After doing that for a few weeks, check in with each other and see what's happened to the spark in your marriage. We think that love languages, expressed love languages, a primary love language for each other as a marriage team, we think it's a superpower, and that it will spark your marriage, and who knows, you may even find a marital fire. So don't hesitate, get started. Have a good one. Now that is too long.
Well, I knew it seemed long, but how long do you want it? We haven't really talked.